A blinding flash of magical light detonates in the pitch-black cavern, followed instantly by the agonized shrieks of 4 high-level shamans clutching their bleeding eyes. My thermal-based enemies thought they had me trapped in a narrow choke point, but they didn't realize they just walked right into my meat grinder. With my newly evolved burgundy scales and a level 8 rodent hostage in my pocket, it's time to show these blind cave dwellers what a real apex predator looks like. The canopy of Oakhaven Forest is thick enough to choke out the midday sun, turning the forest floor into a perpetual, moss-draped twilight. Heavy drops of condensation fall from the massive oak branches, splattering against my newly hardened burgundy scales with a soft, rhythmic patter. I drag my massive, 3-meter-tall frame through the dense undergrowth, my dark demonic wings folded tightly against my spine to avoid snagging on the ancient brambles. The heavy scent of wet pine, damp loam, and rotting vegetation fills my nostrils, a massive upgrade from the sulphurous, stagnant stench of the rotten scale marsh. I am currently carrying a massive haul, a locked guild treasury chest worth 5,000 gold, 50 high-grade mana crystals, and a highly disgruntled level 8 rodent stuffed inside a makeshift leather pouch. My claws scrape against a mossy stone ledger as I peer through the dense foliage, searching for a place that screams unreachable high-level dungeon entrance to any passing human adventurer. A low, rumbling hum echoes in the distance, growing louder and more distinct as I push past a thick curtain of hanging weeping willow vines. Ahead lies a roaring waterfall, its white torrent cascading down a sheer cliff face of black basalt into a deep, churning pool below. The mist rising from the pool clings to my scales, cooling the persistent heat radiating from my core after the chaotic run-in with Sir Gregory and my annoying sister, Isterial. I flare my nostrils, tasting the air for the presence of high-level predators, territorial beasts, or lingering human scouts. The air is clean, smelling of mineral-rich stone and fresh water, with no trace of active magic signatures or musk from large carnivores. I activate Shadow Glide, my body dissolving into a fluid, ink-like silhouette that slips effortlessly along the wet rock wall behind the roaring sheet of water. The transition from the blinding white noise of the waterfall to the damp, cool silence of the cavern behind it is instantaneous. It is a spacious, pitch-black grotto, stretching deep into the basalt cliffside with high ceilings dripping with short, stubby stalactites. I shake myself dry, my burgundy scales rattling like a sheath of metal plates as I drop my stolen loot onto the dusty cavern floor. The heavy guild treasury chest hits the ground with a satisfying, metallic thud, its iron-banded corners sinking slightly into the soft dirt. I carefully untie the leather pouch at my waist, dumping its wriggling occupant onto the flat surface of a smooth boulder. Out tumbles the copper-furred rodent, its tiny, metallic-looking claws immediately scratching for purchase on the slippery stone. It stands on its hind legs, its whiskers twitching frantically as its tiny black eyes dart around the dark cave, searching for an escape route. Before it can even think of bolting toward the waterfall, I shift my weight, casting a massive, demonic shadow over its entire tiny body. I peel back my lips, exposing rows of razor-sharp, obsidian teeth in a slow, terrifyingly wide grin that would make any normal beast drop dead of a heart attack. Under my armpits, the 2 fleshy slits of my gluttonous void I peel open, their pale, slit-pupilled irises shifting and focusing directly on the shivering rodent. A semi-translucent system window flickers to life in my peripheral vision, casting a faint blue glow over the dark cavern walls. Target: Copper-furred Orrats, juvenile, level 8. HP: 45/45 MP. 12/12. Attributes: Strength 4, Agility 18, Constitution 6, Intelligence 3. Asterisk, unique passive. Metal-scenting nose, Tier 1. Detects raw metals, high-grade ores, and mineral-rich flora within a 50-meter radius. A level 8 trash mob with a utility skill that would make a veteran mining player drool. I mutter, my voice a low, gravelly rumble that vibrates the cavern floor. The rodent lets out a high-pitched, terrified squeak, its entire body trembling so violently that its copper fur looks like a vibrating sheet of metal foil. I reach out with one massive, clawed finger, gently tapping the top of its head with just enough force to flatten it against the stone without crushing its skull. "Listen up, little rat," I say, leaning in close enough for my hot, sulphurous breath to ruffle its tiny ears. "From today on, your name is Squeaks." Squeaks freezes, its tiny heart beating so fast I can hear it like a rapid-fire drumbeat inside its chest cavity. I pull my finger back and reach into my storage space, retrieving a single, sparkling blue mana crystal. I place the crystal under my heel, applying a fraction of my massive strength until it shatters with a sharp crack, breaking into dozens of glittering, pea-sized crumbs. I flick a single crumb of pure, concentrated mana toward Squeak's twitching nose. The rodent's instincts instantly war with its absolute terror. Its nose twitches frantically as the sweet, rich scent of raw mana hits its senses. It hesitates for a fraction of a second, then lunges forward, grabbing the crumb in both paws and stuffing it into its mouth with frantic, greedy bites. A tiny spark of blue energy ripples through its copper fur, causing the metallic hairs to stand on end as it absorbs the pure magical energy. "Good boy," I say, my voice dripping with the fake friendliness of an NPC offering a low-tier fetch quest. "You like that? There's plenty more where that came from." I hold up another, slightly larger piece of the shattered crystal, letting the blue light play across my dark, scaly palm. "But in my party, there are no free rides," I continue, my tone dropping back into a freezing, threatening hiss. "You work, you eat, you slack off, or you try to run, and I turn you into a light afternoon snack." To emphasize my point, I let a single drop of corrosive acid spit sizzle off the tip of my tongue, landing on the rock next to Squeaks and instantly burning a smoking, black hole into the stone. Squeaks looks at the smoking hole, then at the mana crystal in my hand, and let out a soft, submissive squeak, bowing its tiny head to the stone. System notification. You have successfully established a tamed status with the wild beast, Squeaks, through extreme intimidation and high-grade bribery. Current loyalty, 42%, Stockholm Syndrome Stage 1. 42% loyalty is more than enough for a slave labor contract. I chuckle, tossing the second crumb of mana crystal to the shivering rodent. Squeaks catches it mid-air, devouring it even faster than the first, his fear slowly being overtaken by the addictive taste of high-grade human trade goods. With the pet training out of the way, I turn my attention to the main event, the heavy, iron-bound guild treasury chest sitting in the center of my cave. I hook my sharp, retractable shadow talons under the heavy brass padlock, flexing my arm muscles until the iron bar screams in protest. With a loud snap, the lock shears off like dry twig, and I fling it into the corner of the cavern where it clatters against the basalt wall. I fling the heavy lid open, and the cavern is instantly illuminated by the warm, glittering reflection of thousands of gold coins. System notification. You have successfully opened the Soline Merchant Guild Treasury Chest. Asterisk, loot acquired. 5,000 gold coins, 50 high-grade mana crystals. Wind attribute. I plunge both of my massive clawed hands into the pile of gold, letting the heavy, cold coins slip through my fingers with a metallic clinking sound that is pure music to my ears. 5,000 gold. I whisper, my eyes scanning the glittering mountain of wealth with pure, unadulterated gamer greed. This is enough to buy out half the premium spice shops in any major human border town. I pull out one of the wind attribute mana crystals, its pale green surface swirling with tiny, trapped hurricanes of pure elemental force. I toss it into the air and catch it in my mouth, crushing it between my molars like a hard piece of candy. A rush of cool, refreshing wind attribute mana surges down my throat, but the system doesn't trigger any stat gains or new skills. As I thought, I sigh, blowing a small puff of green, sparkly wind smoke from my nostrils. My base stats are getting too high for raw, unprocessed crystals to trigger cheap level-ups anymore. I open my character status panel, the familiar holographic screen displaying my current progress and evolution tree. Name, Nat Kravik, Nath. Current race, Demonic Tautai Fledgling, Evolution Phase 2. Level 14/28. Next Evolution Threshold. Level 40. Evolution Points 120/5000. I scroll down to the bottom of the screen, where the grayed out icon for my ultimate mid-game goal sits locked behind a massive wall of system requirements. Locked Evolution Path. Humanoid Mimicry, Tier 1. Asterisk description. Allows the Tautai to compress its physical form, mimicking the shape, voice, and basic biological functions of a humanoid race while retaining all core stats and skills. Requirements for Unlock *1. Reach base level 40. ****2. Consume 5 core essences from different humanoid magic beasts. 0/5. ****3. Accumulate 5,000 evolution points. 120/5000. I rub my chin with a heavy claw, my internal calculator running at maximum capacity as I analyze the steep requirements. Level 40 is a grind, but totally doable if I can find a high-density monster zone on the borders of this forest. I plan, my eyes narrowing. The 5 humanoid magic beast cores are going to be the real bottleneck. I'll have to hunt things like goblin shamans, orc chieftains, or maybe some rogue elven outcasts if I can find them. And 5,000 evolution points. That's going to require me to eat things of incredibly high rarity or mass-consume items with massive nutritional values. My gaze wanders to my active skills, resting on the glowing icon of Gourmand's Digestion, Tier 1. Gourmand's Digestion, Tier 1 converts high-grade human cuisine, rare spices, and complex cooked foods into permanent stat boosts and evolution points. A deep, hollow rumble echoes from my stomach, so loud that Squeaks jumps in terror, dropping the remaining crumbs of his mana crystal. The sheer volume of raw monster cores and drafty swamp water I've eaten lately has left my stomach craving something with actual flavor. I need spices, I say, my tongue running over my sharp teeth as I feel a sudden, intense craving for anything that isn't raw, bloody meat. Real, human-grade spices that can trigger my digestive bonuses. I turn my head slowly toward Squeaks, who is currently trying to hide behind a small protrusion of stone. I point a single, sharp claw at the copper-furred rodent, then point toward the cavern entrance. All right, Squeaks, it's time to earn your keep. I command, my voice low and authoritative. There's a whole forest out there full of rare plants, roots, and herbs. I want you to sniff out anything that smells hot, spicy, aromatic, or highly concentrated with mineral nutrients. Squeaks blinks, its whiskers twitching as it processes the command. Its tiny brain slowly connecting the concept of spicy plants with the reward of more mana crystals. It lets out a quick, determined squeak, turns on its heels, and runs toward the waterfall entrance with surprising speed. I follow close behind, my massive wings folded tight to my back as I slip through the watery curtain, emerging back into the misty twilight of the Oakhaven forest. The moment we step onto the damp forest floor, Squeaks drops to all fours, its nose pressed firmly against the wet moss. It begins to run in zigzag patterns, its tiny copper paws kicking up small clumps of dirt and pine needles as it follows an invisible trail of scents. I stride behind it, my heavy footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of moss, my gluttonous void eye scanning the surrounding trees for any signs of high-level threats. The deeper we go into the ancient woods, the more the air changes, losing its damp, watery scent and replacing it with something sharp and earthy. Suddenly, Squeaks stops dead in his tracks near the base of a massive, hollow oak tree that looks to be at least several centuries old. He begins to scratch frantically at a thick patch of thorny, red-veined vines growing out of a crevice between the massive tree roots. He looks back at me, let out a series of excited, high-pitched squeaks, and points his tiny snout toward the center of the vine patch. I step forward, leaning my massive head down to examine the plant through my appraisal magic. Nestled within the thorny vines are several small, bulbous peppers that glow with a faint, pulsing red light, looking like hot coals resting in the dirt. Target, wild ember peppers, rare grade alchemy ingredient. Asterisk description. A highly volatile, spice-heavy pepper that grows only in areas where high-grade fire mana has seeped into the soil. Highly prized by human chefs and alchemists alike for its intense heat and magic-boosting properties. My mouth instantly waters, a thick glob of saliva dripping from my jaw and sizzling against the damp earth below. Ember peppers. I chuckle, my eyes reflecting the faint red glow of the spicy bulbs. Perfect. This is exactly what I was looking for. I carefully reach into the thorny vines, my tough, scale-covered fingers completely ignoring the sharp thorns that scrape uselessly against my skin. I pluck a cluster of 3 plump, glowing red peppers, the intense heat of the plants immediately radiating against my palm. Squeaks watches me with wide, expectant eyes, his tail swishing back and forth as he waits to see if his hard work will be rewarded. I reach into my pouch, tossing him another tiny chunk of the broken wind attribute mana crystal, which he catches with a joyful squeak before scurrying up a nearby branch to eat in peace. I look down at the 3 glowing peppers in my hand, feeling the heat of the fire attribute mana pulsing within their spicy skins. Let's see what a little human-grade heat does to a dragon's stomach. I grin, tossing all 3 ember peppers into my mouth at once. The moment my teeth crush the peppers, an absolute explosion of pure, concentrated fire erupts inside my mouth. It is not just the physical heat of a normal hot pepper. It is the raw, burning force of concentrated fire mana, searing its way down my throat like a stream of liquid lava. I gasp, a small jet of bright red flame shooting out of my nostrils and singeing the leaves of a nearby bush. System notification. You have consumed Wild Ember Peppers X3. Active skill, Gourmand's Digestion, Tier 1, has been triggered. Analyzing culinary properties, high heat, fire attribute, raw mineral-rich soil essence. Processing metamorphosis. Your body has successfully processed the volatile fire mana. Stat boost acquired, fire resistance plus 3%, permanent, evolution points acquired, plus 45 evolution points, current, 165/5000. I let out a long, satisfied breath, a thin trail of black smoke curling out of my mouth as the intense burning sensation in my stomach slowly settles into a warm, comfortable glow. 45 evolution points from just 3 raw peppers. I whisper, my eyes widening as I realize the massive potential of this strategy. If I can find a way to actually cook these, or combine them with high-grade meat, the point gains will be astronomical. I look down at the remaining vines, noting that there are at least a dozen more peppers ripe for the picking. This is my ticket out of this oversized lizard body, I say, a cold, ambitious smile spreading across my face. I'll scavenge every rare spice, every magical herb, and every high-grade beast this forest has to offer. By the time I step out of this woods and into the human cities, they won't see a monster. They'll see their worst nightmare wrapped in a perfectly human package. The dense canopy of the Oak Haven forest filters the afternoon sun into fractured needles of gold, casting long, irregular shadows across the damp, pine-scented earth. Underneath a thick curtain of bioluminescent moss, my massive 3-meter-tall demonic frame remains perfectly still, my burgundy scales absorbing the shadows like dry earth swallowing water. In my front claw, I hold my newly acquired prisoner, a trembling, level 8 copper-furred rodent with oversized ears and a nose that twitches at a frantic 100 miles an hour. Keep it down, Squeaks. I whisper, my voice a low, gravelly vibration that barely ruffles the nearby ferns. If you chirp and give away our position, I will personally test if my Gourmand's digestion skill works on oversized, metal-sniffing hamsters. The rodent freezes instantly, its tiny bead-like black eyes wide with sheer terror as my massive thumb claw gently taps its sensitive nose. I have spent the last 3 hours navigating the outer rim of the forest, keeping my massive wings tucked tight against my spine to avoid snagging on the ancient oak branches. Squeaks suddenly wriggles in my grip, his tiny snout pointing aggressively toward the northwest, where the dense treeline begins to thin out into a wide, dirt-packed highway. A sharp, distinct scent cuts through the damp smell of rotting wood and pine needles. A pungent, nose-tingling aroma of rich heat, dried roots, and sharp mineral salts. My tongue darts out, tasting the air, my draconic salivary glands instantly activating as the system in my mind registers the chemical composition of the air. System alert, detection of volcanic-based organic compounds and high-grade mineral seasoning detected nearby. Well, look at that, I mutter, a slow, predatory grin peeling back my heavy lips to reveal rows of jagged, obsidian-sharp teeth. You actually came in handy, you little furry metal detector. Using Shadow Glide, I melt into the dark spaces between the towering oaks, moving with an eerie, weightless silence that completely contradicts my massive, heavy-set frame. I peer through a dense thicket of wild berry bushes, my gluttonous void eye beneath my armpit shifting slightly to give me a perfect 360-degree tactical view of the highway. Just 50 yards away, sitting on the muddy shoulder of the main trade route, is a single, medium-sized wooden wagon. The wagon is painted in the faded blue and gold colors of the Soline Kingdom Merchant Guild, but it lacks the heavy iron plating and protective magical runes of Sir Gregory's main treasury convoy. It is a straggler, a low-priority supply vehicle that must have lost its place in the main caravan's dust cloud during the chaotic rush through Black Fong Pass. The left rear wooden wheel is completely shattered, its iron-rimmed spokes splintered into useless toothpicks against a sharp, embedded boulder in the road. A single human driver, wearing a sweat-stained linen tunic and a leather apron, is frantically kneeling in the mud beside the collapsed axle. "Damn it all to the hells!" the driver curses, violently hammering a wooden wedge beneath the axle with a rusted iron mallet. Gregory's men didn't even look back when the axle popped, just kept riding like the god of war himself was breathing down their necks. He wipes a thick layer of grease and sweat from his forehead, leaving a dark smudge across his pale, panicked face. He is a low-level civilian NPC, barely level 5, with 0 combat capabilities and a stamina bar that is already flashing yellow from sheer exhaustion. I scan the back of his wagon, which is piled high with tightly bound burlap sacks, iron-banded wooden crates, and small, clay jars sealed with red wax. My draconic nostrils flare as the wind shifts, carrying the unmistakable, heavy scent of premium volcanic rock salt and dried fire roots. These are not just basic cooking ingredients. They are rare, high-grade culinary treasures imported from the southern volcanic shelves, used by wealthy nobles to season high-tier monster meats. To a normal dragon, this is just seasoning. To me, with my Gourmand's digestion passive, this is a literal goldmine of permanent stat points waiting to be unlocked. I calculate my options, my cynical gamer mind rapidly running through the potential risk-reward scenarios. I could easily leap out of the brush, crush his skull with a single swipe of my heavy talons, and tear the entire wagon apart in seconds. But a brutal slaughter leaves blood, tracks, and a clear signature of a demonic predator operating right on the border of the human kingdom. Sir Gregory and his high-level Soline Iron Vanguard are already hypervigilant after my little heist in the mountain pass. If a merchant driver is found torn to shreds by dragon claws so close to Oakhaven, they will mobilize a full-scale extermination force to sweep these woods. No need to use a sledgehammer when a simple parlor trick will do. I whisper, my eyes glowing with a faint, iridescent light. I activate Illusion Light, Tier 1. Channeling my mana through the unique horn structure on my head to manipulate the ambient light filtering through the canopy. Instead of projecting a decoy of myself, which would only cause the driver to report a dragon sighting to the local garrison, I decide on something more native to the local ecology. I construct the illusion of a massive, 5-meter-tall Oakhaven forest bear, a terrifying, territorial beast known for its aggressive temper and preference for human flesh. I shape the phantom light with meticulous detail, crafting thick, matted brown fur, massive slobbering jaws dripping with glowing saliva, and long, curved yellow claws. To make the illusion perfect, I step heavily on a rotten log, using my actual weight to create a loud, echoing crack that shatters the silence of the forest. The wagon driver freezes instantly, his mallet hovering mid-air, his entire body turning rigid as a board. Who's there?" he stammers, his voice cracking with pure, unadulterated terror as he slowly turns his head toward the deep brush. Right on cue, I project the illusionary forest bear directly into his line of sight, forcing the phantom beast to emerge from the dense foliage just 10 yards away. The illusionary bear rears up on its hind legs, casting a massive, terrifying shadow over the narrow road, and lets out a silent, roaring gesture. At the exact same second, I mimic the sound, unleashing a deep, guttural, chest-rumbling roar from my own throat that vibrates the very dirt beneath the wagon. The sheer auditory force of the roar rattles the wooden crates on the wagon, sending a flock of birds screaming into the sky above. The driver's eyes roll back so far I can see the whites, his mallet slipping from his limp fingers and splashing into the thick mud. "Bear! Monster bear!" he shrieks, his voice reaching a pitch that only dogs should be able to hear. He doesn't even bother to grab his coin purse or his coat. He simply scrambles backward on all fours, slipping and sliding in the mud like a frantic crab. He scrambles to his feet, takes one look at the towering, drooling illusionary beast, and bolts down the highway toward the nearest human outpost as fast as his cowardly legs can carry him. I watch his retreating figure disappear around a bend in the road, his screams of terror slowly fading into the distance. Easiest quest completion of my life. I chuckle, letting the illusionary bear dissolve into harmless, shimmering particles of light. I step out from the treeline, my massive, burgundy-scaled body towering over the abandoned wagon, the wooden planks groaning under my sheer weight as I approach. Squeaks peeps nervously from my leather pouch, but I ignore him, my entire focus locked onto the cargo bed. I wrap my heavy, clawed hand around the iron latch of the largest wooden crate and rip it clean off its hinges with a casual flick of my wrist. Inside, nestled in protective straw, are dozens of small earthenware jars sealed with thick red wax. I shatter the wax seal of the first jar with a sharp talon and inhale deeply, the rich, fiery scent of volcanic rock salt hitting my sinuses like a physical blow. System item scan: volcanic crimson rock salt, a rare mineral harvested from the active vents of Mount Solene. Highly prized by elite chefs for its ability to tenderize high-tier beast meat and unlock dormant elemental properties. Fascinating, I murmur, tipping the entire contents of the 3-pound jar directly into my gaping, fanged maw. The salt hits my tongue like a wave of liquid fire, burning with a sharp, intense heat that would have blistered a normal creature's throat. But my Gourmand's digestion skill instantly activates, a warm, golden glow radiating from my stomach as the system begins to process the intense mineral density. System notification: Gourmand's digestion activated successfully. Processing high-grade mineral, volcanic crimson rock salt. Analyzing elemental composition, extraction of fire attribute mana complete. Permanent stat increase, +2 fire resistance.
Permanent stat incréase, +1 constitution.
I let out a satisfied belch, a small puff of black, sulfurous smoke curling from my nostrils. Oh, that is the good stuff. I grin, my greedy eyes scanning the remaining crates in the wagon bed. I grab 3 more jars of the volcanic salt, crushing them in my mouth like hard candies, ignoring the crunch of the clay jars as my powerful stomach acid instantly dissolves the earthenware. System notification: permanent stat increase, +4 fire resistance. System notification: permanent stat increase, +2 constitution. System notification: mineral threshold reached. Minor resistance boost unlocked. Basic heat tolerance increased by 5%. My skin tingles as my burgundy scales harden slightly, a faint, reddish sheen reflecting the sunlight as my biological structure adapts to the extreme mineral intake. Next, I tear open a heavy burlap sack, revealing dozens of twisted, charcoal black roots that radiate a faint, pulsing red heat. System item scan: smoldering fire root, a deep earth tuber that absorbs raw geothermal energy. Extremely spicy and toxic to untrained human palates, but highly magical. A natural steroid for a dragon. I laugh, grabbing a massive fistful of the hot, fibrous roots and stuffing them into my mouth, The texture is incredibly tough, like chewing on seasoned leather, but my powerful jaws grind them into a fine pulp in seconds. The heat is spectacular, blooming in my chest like a miniature sun, sending waves of raw, volatile energy coursing through my magical pathways. System notification. Gourmand's digestion processing highly volatile organic matter. Smoldering fire root. Extracting active magical compounds. Stimulating neural pathways and mana core nodes. Permanent stat increase. +3 intelligence. Permanent stat increase. +2 magic power. Permanent stat increase. +3 fire resistance. I throw my head back, a low, rumbling purr vibrating through my chest as the sheer rush of free, unearned stats floods my system. This is the ultimate min-maxing strategy. While my idiot siblings are running around the marsh hunting low-level slimes for miserable scrapings of XP, I am literally eating my way to godhood. I systematically clear out the entire wagon, devouring every single jar of salt and every sack of fire root, leaving nothing behind but shattered wooden crates and empty straw. My internal status screen flickers in my vision, the green holographic numbers rapidly updating as the massive influx of nutrients settles into my body. Nat Kravik, level 1428, fledgling evolution stage, fire resistance, 15% - 39%, intelligence, 42-45, constitution, 58-61, mana reserves, +150, permanent. I wipe a smear of red volcanic salt from my snout, feeling a deep, satisfying warmth radiating from my core. I am still a long way from level 40 and the coveted humanoid mimicry skill, but this little roadside snack has pushed me significantly closer to my goals. I hear a distant, faint sound echoing from the highway, the metallic clinking of armor and the rapid thud of horse hooves. The driver must have reached the local patrol, and they are returning with armed guards to investigate the monster bear. Time to go, I mutter, grabbing Squeaks and stuffing him back into my secure pouch. With a single, powerful leap, I launch my heavy body back into the deep shadows of the Oakhaven forest. My demonic wings flared slightly to catch the wind. By the time the human soldiers arrive to find their precious culinary cargo completely vaporized, I will be deep in the ancient woods, planning my next profitable raid on their unsuspecting society. I melt back into the thick, mossy foliage just as the first sounds of shouting and the heavy stomping of armored boots reach the edge of the clearing. From my elevated perch on a massive, thick branch of an ancient oak, I look down through the leaves, my golden-slitted eyes narrowing as 3 human soldiers clad in polished iron breastplates emerge onto the road. Beside them is the frantic merchant driver, his finger trembling violently as he points toward the shattered remnants of his blue and gold wagon. I swear to the gods, Captain, it was as tall as the trees themselves. The driver shrieks, his voice cracking with lingering hysteria. A massive, red-eyed Oakhaven bear with claws like scythes and a roar that nearly shook my teeth right out of my skull. The lead soldier, a rugged man with a thick gray beard and a deep scar running down his left cheek, walks slowly toward the empty wagon bed. He kicks a piece of shattered pottery with the toe of his heavy iron boot, his brow furrowing as he inspects the clean, sheared edges of the broken wooden crates. "A bear did this?" the captain asks, his voice dripping with deep skepticism as he bends down to pick up a handful of empty, dry straw. Since when do forest bears carefully unlatch iron clasps and meticulously consume every single jar of refined volcanic salt while leaving the wooden carriage entirely intact? It must have been a highly magic-sensitive variant beast. The driver stammers, desperately trying to defend his sanity as his face turns a bright, embarrassed shade of crimson. You know how wild beasts are attracted to geothermal mana. It probably smelled the fire roots and went into a feeding frenzy. The captain tosses the straw aside and sighs, rubbing the bridge of his nose in sheer exasperation. "There are no tracks here, you fool. A 5-meter-tall bear would have left footprints deep enough to bury my shield in this soft mud. Whatever raided your wagon was fast, incredibly stealthy, and possessed a highly specific, almost human-like intelligence. Mark my words, This is the work of those filthy, opportunistic rebels from the borderlands, or worse, some rogue magic caster with a taste for expensive imports. Up in my tree, I have to actively suppress a raspy, rumbling chuckle from escaping my throat. Humans are always so delightfully eager to blame their own kind, concocting elaborate political conspiracies rather than admitting a high-tier predator is living right under their noses. Let them waste their valuable resources hunting imaginary rebels and phantom sorcerers in the southern valleys. It only keeps the heat off my actual hunting grounds. I carefully shift my weight, my long, heavy tail wrapping around the thick oak trunk to maintain my perfect balance without making a single rustle in the leaves. Squeaks pokes his tiny, copper-furred head out of my leather pouch, his nose twitching rapidly as he sniffs the scent of the human soldiers below. I place a single, massive clawed finger gently over his tiny head, applying just enough pressure to let him know that any sudden squeak will result in him becoming my next high-fiber snack. The tiny rodent gets the message instantly, pulling his head back inside the pouch and shivering in silent, obedient terror. Down on the road, the captain turns to his two subordinates, gesturing toward the surrounding treeline with his heavy iron sword. Secure the perimeter and search the immediate brush for any signs of discarded cargo or hidden campsites, he orders sharply. If this was a rebel raid, they couldn't have gone far with that much weight. Those fire roots alone weigh 100 pounds. Understood, Captain. The two soldiers salute, drawing their short swords and cautiously stepping toward the dense, tangled undergrowth. One of the soldiers begins walking directly toward the base of the massive oak tree where I am currently perched. He is a young kid, probably no older than 18, with a helmet that is slightly too large for his head and a visible tremor in his sword hand. He pokes at a thick cluster of ferns with the tip of his blade, his eyes scanning the dark ground for any signs of life. He is currently standing exactly 4 meters directly below my dangling, scale-covered tail. If I were a mindless, bloodthirsty monster, I could simply drop down, crush his helmet into his skull, and consume his soul before his companions could even scream. But my gamer instincts warn me against such reckless, short-sighted violence. Killing a royal soldier here would trigger an automatic regional alert, raising the local threat level and forcing the Soline Kingdom to dispatch high-level paladins to purge the forest. I am strong, but I am not an entire holy order at level 14 strong. I quietly activate my shadow glide skill once more, allowing my massive body to dissolve into a semi-liquid, pitch-black vapor that clings to the bark of the tree. I slowly, silently slither upward along the trunk, moving further into the upper canopy where the leaves are thickest and the light cannot penetrate. Below us, the young soldier stops, looking up toward the branch I just vacated with a confused, uneasy expression on his face. "Hey, did you feel that?" he calls out to his companion, his voice echoing nervously through the quiet woods. The air suddenly got incredibly cold, like all the heat was sucked out of the clearing. "You're just jumpy from the driver's ridiculous bear stories, kid." The other soldier scoffs, not even looking back as he kicks a rotten log. "Get your head in the game. The sooner we finish this sweep, the sooner we can get back to the warm tavern in Oakhaven." The young soldier hesitates, looking up one last time directly at the dark patch of leaves where my glowing eyes are hidden, before shaking his head and walking away. I let out a silent breath of relief, the cool air venting from my secondary nostrils without making a sound. Once the soldiers have wandered far enough down the road, their voices fading into the distant murmur of the forest, I begin my descent. I drop from the branch with a light, silent thud, landing gracefully on all fours like a massive, burgundy-scaled panther. My stomach lets out a loud, rumbling gurgle, the high-grade volcanic nutrients still actively digesting and fusing with my muscular structure. System notification. Digestion of volcanic crimson rock salt and smoldering fire root is 100% complete. All structural changes have stabilized. New passive ability unlocked. Volcanic Core, Tier 1. Effect. Increases all fire attribute spell damage by 10% and allows the user to absorb ambient heat to slowly regenerate mana. I run a clawed hand over my chest, feeling a distinct, pulsing warmth emanating from beneath my heavy breast scales. It feels like a miniature furnace has been installed right next to my heart, radiating a constant stream of clean, volatile energy throughout my entire body. This is an incredible upgrade. Not only did I gain a massive boost to my defenses, but my mana regeneration is now passive and highly efficient. I open my character status sheet once more, admiring the beautiful, clean distribution of my newly acquired stats. My physical strength and magical power are perfectly balanced, making me far more versatile than a standard dragon of my age. Now, where to next? I muse, my eyes scanning the deep, uncharted depths of the Oakhaven forest. According to the regional maps I memorized back in my previous life, the Oakhaven forest is not just home to merchant roads and low-level wild beasts. Deep within the Northern Territory, near the base of the Misty Peaks, lies an ancient, abandoned elven ruin known as the Whispering Sanctum. The rumors say it is filled with high-grade magical herbs, rare crystal formations, and dangerous, level 20 guardian golems made of solid, mana-infused stone. To a normal party of human adventurers, it is a death trap. To me, it is a 5-star buffet of rare minerals and magical elements waiting to be harvested. If those stone golems are indeed made of mana-infused, or my Gourmand's digestion should be able to break them down into permanent defense and strength stats. Just the thought of chewing through high-grade magical stone makes my jaw ache with anticipation. All right, Squeaks, I say, tapping the leather pouch where the little rodent is still hiding. We're going on a little road trip to the north. And if you manage to sniff out any rare earth crystals along the way, I might actually let you live long enough to see your next birthday. The rodent lets out a tiny, high-pitched squeak of understanding, his little nose twitching in agreement. I turn away from the highway, my massive wings giving a slight, powerful twitch as I leap over a thick fallen log and plunge into the deep, untamed wilderness. The shadows of the forest wrap around my burgundy scales like a familiar cloak, completely erasing my presence from the world of humans. I am Nat Kravik, the gluttonous dragon who will eat his way to the top of the food chain, and this forest is nothing more than my personal kitchen. The heavy canopy of the Oakhaven forest filters the afternoon sun into fractured, emerald beams that dance across my thick, burgundy scales. I am perched high up in the thick branches of a massive, ancient oak tree, my 3-meter-tall frame well hidden by the dense, mossy foliage. My heavy tail, lined with sharp, calcified ridges, twitches slowly as I look down at my freshly acquired hoard of gold and mana crystals resting in a hollow trunk nearby. 5,000 gold coins and 50 high-grade mana crystals. I mutter to myself, a low, rumbling growl of satisfaction vibrating through my chest. My long, dark demonic wings are folded tightly against my back, their leathery membranes occasionally rustling like dry autumn leaves. Beneath my armpits, the wet, fleshy lids of my gluttonous void eyes blink slowly, their pupilless, yellow gazes scanning the dark forest floor in a constant 360-degree sweep. System notifications still linger at the edge of my vision, flashing pale blue against the dark backdrop of the woods. Current level, 14/28. Evolution stage, Tautai fledgling. Evolution target, Humanoid Mimicry, requires level 40, 5 out of 5 humanoid magic beast essences, 5,000 evolution points. I let out a dry, clicking chuckle that sounds more like grinding stones than any proper draconic roar. Level 40 is a hell of a grind, but getting those 5 humanoid essences is going to be the real bottleneck. I think, my reptilian mind calculating the optimal route. Humanoid magic beasts aren't just common goblins or trolls. The system requires a specific threshold of complex skeletal structures and high-functioning mana pathways to count toward the evolution. Suddenly, a soft, high-pitched squeak sounds from the small, woven leather pouch tied securely to my waist harness. I reach down with my massive, clawed hand, gingerly tapping the side of the pouch where my captive copper-furred rodent is shivering. Quiet down, my little metal detector, I whisper, my forked tongue tasting the damp forest air. You'll get your share of iron or once I find a vein. The breeze shifts, carrying a sharp, musky scent from the deep valleys of Oakhaven. It is the smell of wet fur, rot, and a dense, pulsing concentration of wild mana. Down below, the thick ferns and rotting logs of the forest floor begin to rustle violently. Through the dense underbrush, several large, canine shapes begin to emerge, their movements synchronized and predatory. Appraisal. Woodwarg, level 30. Beast/Fey type. Appraisal. Woodwarg, level 30. Beast/Fey type. Appraisal. Woodwarg, level 31. Beast/Fey type. I count at least 8 of them. Their bodies covered in moss-green fur that blends perfectly with the shadows of the forest. Their eyes glow with a pale, bioluminescent green light, and their jaws are lined with jagged, wooden teeth that can easily splinter solid bone. But they aren't the ones leading this hunt. Behind the vanguard of wargs, a sleek, terrifyingly graceful shape glides silently over the damp moss. Appraisal. Shadow Leopard, level 35 elite. Half-humanoid/beast type. My breath hitches in my throat as the glowing system text hovers over the massive feline. System note: due to its unique skeletal structure, bipedal-capable musculature, and advanced mana pathways, this specimen is classified as a half-humanoid magic beast. An elite level 35. I think, a wide, predatory grin pulling back my dark lips to reveal rows of razor-sharp fangs. And it counts toward the 5 humanoid essences I need for my transformation. The Shadow Leopard is a magnificent, terrifying beast. Its coat a shifting pattern of abyssal black and starlight violet spots. It moves without making a single sound, its heavy paws leaving no trace on the soft, muddy ground. The beast's eyes are a cold, intelligent crimson, and its long twin tails whip through the air like thin black snakes. It is clear that the commotion from my recent highway robbery at Blackfong Pass has drawn them toward the scent of blood and magic. The wood wargs fan out in a semicircle, their noses twitching as they catch the lingering scent of my draconic presence. One of the larger wargs stops directly beneath my branch, its snout lifting as it lets out a low, interrogative whine. "Too slow, you overgrown puppies." I sneer internally, my chest swelling as I prepare my opening move. My lungs burn as a volatile mixture of corrosive acid and concentrated mana pools in my throat. Skill activated. Corrosive acid spit, Tier 2. I lean forward, opening my massive jaws wide, and unleash a torrent of sizzling, emerald green liquid directly onto the pack. The stream of acid hits the vanguard of 3 woodwargs with a sickening, wet splash. Instantly, the forest is filled with the horrifying shriek of melting flesh and dissolving bone. The green fur of the wargs bubbles and liquefies within seconds, the highly corrosive fluid eating through their thick hides. You have slain woodwarg, level 30. Gained 1,200 XP. You have slain woodwarg, level 30. Gained 1,200 XP. The third warg thrashes on the ground, its hind legs dissolved into a bloody, steaming slurry before it finally goes still. You have slain woodwarg, level 31. Gained 1,250 XP. The remaining 5 woodwargs leap backward in terror, their growls turning into panicked whimpers as they look up at the canopy. "Oh, did that hurt?" I mock them silently, dropping down from my high branch like a falling meteor. My 3-meter, burgundy-scaled body slams into the forest floor, shattering a massive rotting log and sending a shockwave of mud and debris in all directions. The impact causes the ground to tremble, and the sheer weight of my landing sends a nearby warg flying into a tree trunk with a dull crack. You have dealt critical physical damage to woodwarg, level 30. Before the dazed beast can recover, I spin on my hind legs, my heavy, ridged tail whipping through the air like a spiked club. The tail strikes the warg directly in the ribcage, shattering its wooden bones and sending it crashing into the deep underbrush. You have slain woodwarg, level 30. Gained 1,200 XP. The remaining 4 wargs realize they are dealing with a monster far beyond their league and try to scatter. "Not on my watch," I growl, my retractable, tiger-like claws sliding out from my massive talons with a sharp, metallic ring. Skill activated. Shadow glide. My physical form blurs, melting into the dark. Long shadows cast by the afternoon sun and the dense tree canopy. I reappear instantly behind one of the fleeing wargs, my massive claws descending like a guillotine. With a single, fluid strike, I rip through its back, severing its spine and leaving it to collapse into the dirt. You have slain Wood Warg, level 30. Gained 1,200 XP. The remaining 3 wargs howl in pure terror, running in completely different directions to escape the Crimson Demon in their woods. I let them go. They are small fry, and my real target has vanished from the immediate battlefield. I stand in the center of the bloody clearing, my heavy chest rising and falling as I scan the dark tree line. The elite shadow leopard is nowhere to be seen. It has completely melded into the deep shadows of the forest, its presence entirely erased from my normal vision. A true hunter, I think, my tactical mind analyzing the situation with cold, gamer-like precision. It's waiting for me to lower my guard. I slowly turn around, pretending to be distracted by the fresh warg carcasses scattered around me. I bend down, picking up a severed leg of a wood warg, and sniff it with an air of arrogant indifference. But beneath my left armpit, the gluttonous void eye is wide open, its yellow iris spinning rapidly as it pierces through the darkness. The 360-degree vision granted by the Taoya's eye is an absolute cheat code against stealth-based predators. To my normal eyes, the space behind me is empty, silent, and completely still. But to the gluttonous void eye, a distortion in the ambient mana is clearly visible, creeping along the thick branch of a nearby oak. The shadow leopard is crouching directly above my blind spot, its muscles tensed like a coiled spring, ready to strike. Its glowing crimson eyes are locked onto the back of my neck, where my scales are slightly thinner. "Come on," I whisper under my breath, maintaining my relaxed, vulnerable posture. "Take the bait, you overgrown kitty." The shadow leopard leaps. It moves with incredible speed, a silent, black bolt of death descending from the branch with its claws outstretched. The air doesn't even whisper as the beast cuts through it, its stealth magic completely masking its approach. But I can see every single millimeter of its trajectory through my secondary eye. Just as the leopard's claws are inches away from my neck, I shift my weight and slide my left foot back. Skill activated. Venomous bone spikes. With a violent, wet sound, dozens of calcified, toxic obsidian needles protrude from my shoulders, elbows, and back. The shadow leopard's eyes widen in sheer panic as it realizes it is falling directly onto a bed of deadly spikes. It tries to twist its body in midair to abort the strike, but its momentum is too great. The obsidian spikes pierce deep into the leopard's chest, shoulders, and forelegs with a sickening series of squelches. "Got you!" I roar, my voice shaking the leaves of the surrounding trees. The black, necrotic poison coating my spikes instantly enters the leopard's bloodstream, causing the beast to let out a strangled, agonizing scream. The shadow leopard thrashes violently, trying to pull itself off my spikes, but I won't let it escape. I turn around fully, my massive, clawed hands reaching up to grab the beast by its thick neck and lower torso. With a grunt of pure, primal exertion, I slam the elite beast onto the forest floor, pinning it down with my immense weight. The ground cracks beneath the impact, and the leopard coughs up a thick spray of dark, poisoned blood. You have dealt massive critical damage to Shadow Leopard, level 35 elite. Target is suffering from severe necrotic poisoning. The leopard's crimson eyes are filled with a mixture of pain, rage, and sheer disbelief as it looks up at me. It tries to slash at my face with its hind legs, but my dense burgundy scales easily deflect the weakened strikes. "You're a tough one," I say, my voice dripping with cold sarcasm. "But you're just another stepping stone on my path to humanity." I raise my massive right fist, my claws glowing with a faint, dark mana, and slam it directly into the leopard's skull. The impact shatters the beast's facial bones, sending a wet spray of blood and brain matter across the dark moss. The leopard's body convulses once, twice, and then finally goes completely limp. You have slain Shadow Leopard, level 35 elite, gained 6,500 XP. Your level has increased. Level 14 dash. Level 15. Your level has increased. Level 15 dash. Level 16. A warm wave of evolutionary energy surges through my veins, repairing the minor scratches on my scales and revitalizing my mana pool. But I don't care about the level up right now. My eyes are locked on the glowing violet sphere hovering just above the leopard's chest. It is its mana core, pulsing with a dense, complex magical signature that feels almost human. I reach out and grab the core, the cool, magical energy tingling against my rough palms. Without a second thought, I open my massive jaws and toss the glowing core into my mouth, swallowing it whole. Skill activated. Gourmand's Digestion, Tier 1. The core dissolves in my stomach instantly, sending a wave of intense, burning heat throughout my entire body. My muscles tighten, and my bones creak as they absorb the unique genetic information of the half-humanoid beast. System alert. Humanoid magic beast essence consumed. Progress. 1 out of 5 humanoid essences acquired. You have gained permanent physical stats. Plus 5 strength, plus 8 agility, plus 4 mana. I let out a long, steaming breath, a deep sense of power washing over me as the evolution counter updates. 1 down, for to go. I mutter, a dark, ambitious smile spreading across my face. I look down at the massive carcass of the shadow leopard, my stomach letting out a loud, hungry growl. Well, I say, my claws sinking into the fresh meat. It would be a sin to let all this high-grade protein go to waste. I begin my feast in the quiet, blood-soaked glade, the shadows of the Oakhaven forest lengthening around me as the sun slowly sets. The sound of tearing flesh and cracking bone echoes through the quiet glade as my heavy jaws make quick work of the elite shadow leopard's remains. Skill activated. Gourmand's Digestion, Tier 1. With every massive bite, a warm, tingling sensation spreads from my stomach outward, carrying vital nutrients and raw physical power directly into my cells. You have consumed high-grade magical beast meat. Temporary health regeneration increased by 150% for the next 2 hours. The taste is incredibly gamey, but the nutritional value is absolutely top tier. I think, wiping a thick smear of dark purple blood from my scaled chin. I look down at my hands, flexing my fingers as I feel the minor scratches on my burgundy scales knit themselves back together with remarkable speed. My eyes drift back to the remaining woodwarg carcasses scattered across the torn-up forest floor. Might as well clean up the mess, I mutter, grabbing the nearest dead canine by its hind legs and dragging its heavy body toward me. I consume the wargs one by one, their lower-grade mana barely registering to my refined palate but still providing a decent boost to my overall energy reserves. You have consumed Woodwarg, level 30. Gained 200 evolution points. You have consumed Woodwarg, level 30. Gained 200 evolution points. You have consumed Woodwarg, level 31. Gained 210 evolution points. You have consumed Woodwarg, level 30. Gained 200 evolution points. Current evolution points, 1,810/5,000. Almost 2/5 of the way there. I calculate, my slit pupil eyes scanning the system interface floating in front of my face. The copper-furred rodent in my waist pouch lets out another nervous squeak, scratching frantically against the thick leather. I tap the pouch gently, my sharp talon making a dull click against the metal buckle. Patience, little guy. Your turn to help me find some iron or is coming up soon. I say, my voice a low, gravelly rumble. I look back toward the hollow oak tree where my hoard of 5,000 gold coins and 50 high-grade mana crystals is hidden. I can't just carry all of this on my back while I hunt down the remaining for humanoid magic beasts. I think, rubbing my chin thoughtfully. A 3-meter-tall dragon demon carrying a literal sack of glowing treasure through a dense forest is basically a walking lighthouse for every high-level hunter in the region. I need a more secure way to transport my wealth, or at least a temporary base of operations that isn't easily discovered. I look up at the massive, ancient oak tree that served as my hiding spot just minutes ago. Its trunk is wide enough that 4 grown men couldn't hold hands around it, and the high-altitude branches are completely hidden by the dense, mossy foliage. This will have to do for now, I decide, stepping toward the hollow where the treasure glints in the dimming light. I carefully arrange the gold coins in the deepest part of the hollow, covering them with dry leaves, thick moss, and heavy pieces of rotting bark. The 50 high-grade mana crystals are packed tightly beneath the coins, their soft blue light completely suppressed by the natural debris. Once the hoard is fully concealed, I take a step back and activate my gluttonous void eyes to inspect my handiwork from different angles. Even with my advanced 360-degree vision, the treasure is completely invisible from the forest floor. Good, I whisper, a small nod of satisfaction confirming my security measures are sufficient. Now, where do I find the remaining humanoid magic beasts? I open my regional map overlay, the semi-transparent blue screen projecting a detailed topography of the Oakhaven Forest and the surrounding mountains. To the north lies the Whispering Ravine, a deep, fog-shrouded canyon known for housing territorial fey creatures and high-level monsters. To the west is the Blackfang Pass, where I just pulled off the highway robbery, meaning merchant guards and guild adventurers will be swarming the area looking for the culprit. Heading west is suicide right now. Those human mages have all kinds of tracking spells that can pinpoint a dragon's mana signature. I analyze, my finger tracing a path toward the north. The Whispering Ravine is dangerous, but the dense fog and chaotic mana currents will make it impossible for human trackers to follow me. More importantly, the ravine is home to a specific type of monster that fits my evolution requirements perfectly. The Harpy Sirens, I say, a cold smile spreading across my face as I recall the lore of this region. Harpies are classic half-humanoid beasts, possessing complex vocal cords, bipedal skeletal structures, and a highly developed magical affinity. They should easily count toward the 4 remaining humanoid essences I need. Before I set off, I need to make sure my current stats are optimized for a high-mobility, aerial battlefield like the ravine. System, display my current attribute status. I command mentally. Name, Drake, temporary. Race, Tautai fledgling, evolution stage 2. Level, 16/28. Health, 850/850. Mana, 420/420. Strength, 72, +5. Agility, 58, +8. Constitution, 65. Intelligence, 40. Attributes, Dark, Acid, Void. To active skills, Corrosive Acid Spit, Tier 2. Shadow Glide, Tier 1. Venomous Bone Spikes, Tier 2. Gourmand's Digestion, Tier 1. Passive skills, Gluttonous Void Eyes, Tier 2. Dragon Demon Scale Armor, Tier 2. My physical strength and agility took a nice leap after consuming that elite shadow leopard, I think, feeling the raw power flowing through my limbs. But fighting harpies in a ravine means I will be dealing with wind magic, sonic attacks, and 3-dimensional combat. My heavy, 3-meter-tall body is a massive target, and my dark demonic wings are currently more suited for short glides than sustained, high-speed flight. I need to practice using my wings in active combat before I reach the ravine, or I'll just end up falling to my death. I realize, looking down at the leathery membranes folded tightly against my back. I stretch my wings wide, the dark, leathery appendages spanning nearly 6 meters from tip to tip. They feel heavy, but the muscle groups connecting them to my upper back are incredibly dense and powerful. I take a deep breath, focusing a small amount of mana into my wings to test their responsiveness.
Mana consumed, 10.
A pale purple glow lines the edges of my wing membranes, and the heavy appendages flap once, creating a sudden gust of wind that scatters the fallen leaves around me. The upward lift is immediate, pulling my heavy body slightly off the ground before I let myself drop back down. It works, but it's incredibly inefficient, I grumble, checking my mana pool. Using mana to force flight will drain me within minutes. I need to rely on natural aerodynamic principles, using my raw physical strength to flap and my tail to steer. Let's get moving, I say, crouching low to the ground to prepare for a leap. I spring forward, my powerful leg muscles launching my 3-meter frame high into the air. At the peak of my jump, I snap my wings open, catching a strong draft of wind blowing through the tree canopy. I glide forward, soaring silently over the treetops of the Oakhaven forest as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of deep orange and purple. Below me, the forest becomes a dark, sprawling carpet of green, the occasional glowing eyes of nocturnal predators blinking in the shadows. I keep my altitude relatively low, using the treetops as cover to avoid being spotted by any high-level aerial beasts that might be roaming the upper atmosphere. After about an hour of continuous gliding, the dense forest begins to thin out, replaced by jagged stone formations and steep, rocky cliffs. The air grows noticeably colder, carrying the damp, metallic scent of wet stone and rushing water. The Whispering Ravine, I mutter, landing silently on a high, rocky outcrop overlooking the massive canyon. The ravine is a terrifying sight, a massive fissure in the earth that stretches as far as the eye can see, its depths plunged in absolute pitch-black darkness. A thick, white fog rolls through the canyon, swirling like a living thing as the wind whistles through the narrow stone gaps. The whistling sound is eerie, resembling a chorus of soft, weeping voices that echo off the stone walls. No wonder they call it the Whispering Ravine. I think, my gluttonous void eyes scanning the fog-shrouded depths. To my normal eyes, the canyon is just a wall of white mist and dark stone. But my secondary eyes easily pierce through the fog, revealing several large, circular nests clinging to the steep cliff sides. The nests are made of thick branches, animal bones, and what looks like scraps of colorful clothing from unfortunate travelers. Found them, I whisper, spotting a pair of slender figures perched on a rocky ledge near one of the nests. Appraisal: Harpy Scout, level 28, half-humanoid/beast type. Appraisal: Harpy Scout, level 29, half-humanoid/beast type. The harpies have the upper bodies of pale, slender women, but their arms are replaced by massive, feathered wings with sharp, clawed tips. Their lower bodies are those of predatory birds, ending in thick, yellow talons that grip the wet stone with ease. Their faces are beautiful but vacant, their eyes solid black without any irises or pupils. 2 scouts, I analyze, crouching low behind a boulder to mask my silhouette. A direct frontal assault will alert the entire colony. If I get swarmed by dozens of flying magic beasts in this narrow ravine, my lack of aerial maneuverability will be my downfall. I need to lure them out one by one, or find a way to fight them on solid ground where I have the absolute advantage. I look down at my waist pouch, where the copper-furred rodent is quiet again. Actually, I can use you as bait, little guy, I whisper, opening the pouch slightly. The rodent looks up at me with wide, terrified eyes, its nose twitching rapidly as it catches the scent of the predatory harpies nearby. Don't worry, I won't let them actually eat you, I reassure the tiny beast, though my tone is entirely devoid of actual warmth. You're too valuable to lose. I reach into the pouch and tie a thin, durable silk thread around the rodent's rear harness, ensuring it can't escape my grasp. I place the rodent on the edge of the rocky outcrop, letting it run around in a small circle while squeaking in panic. The high-pitched squeaks echo off the stone walls, cutting through the eerie whistling of the wind. Instantly, the heads of the 2 harpy scouts snap in my direction, their black eyes locking onto the tiny, shivering rodent. They let out a synchronized, low-frequency click, communicating with each other without making a sound that would alert the rest of the nest. One of the harpies spreads her wings, launching herself off the ledge and gliding silently through the thick fog toward my position. The other scout remains on the ledge, her eyes scanning the surrounding area to ensure no other predators are nearby. Perfect, I think, my muscles tensing as I prepare the trap. Only one is coming. I pull back into the deepest shadow cast by the boulder, my burgundy scales perfectly blending with the dark stone. I activate my shadow glide skill, my physical form dissolving into a pool of pure liquid shadow that creeps along the base of the rock. Skill activated. Shadow glide. The Harpy Scout approaches rapidly, her massive feathered wings making a soft, rhythmic slicing sound as they cut through the damp fog. She descends toward the rocky outcrop, her sharp, yellow talons reaching out to snatch the panicked rodent. Just as her talons are inches away from the bait, I strike from the shadows. I erupt from the ground directly beneath her, my massive 3-meter frame exploding outward like a coiled spring. Before the harpy can even process my sudden appearance, my right hand shoots forward, my clawed fingers wrapping tightly around her slender neck. The sheer force of my grip chokes out any scream she might have uttered, her windpipe compressing beneath my immense strength. I slam her body face first into the hard, stone ground, shattering her delicate facial bones and silencing her instantly. You have dealt critical physical damage to Harpy Scout, level 28. The harpy thrashes violently under my hand, her feathered wings beating against my face and chest in a desperate bid for freedom. Her wing claws scratch against my burgundy scales, but they barely leave a white mark on my dragon demon scale armor. Too weak, I sneer, my left hand rising to grab one of her wings. With a cold, brutal twist, I rip the wing completely out of its socket, a thick spray of pale blue blood coating the rocky ground. The harpy lets out a muffled, agonizing groan through her shattered jaw, her body going limp as shock sets in. I don't waste any time. I squeeze my right hand with all my might, crushing her neck with a wet, heavy snap. You have slain Harpy Scout, level 28. Gained 2,100 XP. I quickly pull the carcass behind the boulder, hiding it from the view of the second scout still waiting on the ledge. I look down at the dead harpy, my eyes focusing on her chest where a faint, glowing blue sphere is beginning to form. Excellent, I mutter, reaching down to rip the mana core from her chest cavity. The core is small but dense, vibrating with a high-frequency energy that resonates with the natural wind magic of the ravine. I toss the glowing blue sphere into my mouth and swallow it whole. Skill activated. Gourmand's Digestion, Tier 1. A sharp, icy sensation spreads through my throat and lungs, making my breathing feel incredibly light and effortless. System alert. Humanoid magic beast essence consumed. Progress. 2 out of 5 humanoid essences acquired. You have gained permanent physical stats. +3 agility, +6 mana, +2 intelligence. I take a deep, experimental breath, noting that the heavy, damp air of the ravine no longer feels restrictive. In fact, I can feel the subtle air currents moving around me, giving me a much better sense of the space. This essence is perfect for my evolution. I think, a highly satisfied grin spreading across my face. It's refining my mana pathways to adapt to aerial environments. I look back toward the rocky ledge where the second Harpy Scout is still perched. She seems to be growing impatient, her head tilting from side to side as she wonders why her partner hasn't returned with the prey. Well, let's not keep her waiting, I whisper, grabbing the first harpy's severed wing and tossing it over the edge of the outcrop. The bloody, blue-stained feathers flutter down through the fog, landing on a rocky ledge directly below the second scout. The second scout spots the bloody feathers instantly, her black eyes widening as she lets out a sharp, alarmed shriek that echoes through the ravine. Shit! I hiss, realizing her shriek was a call to the entire nest. Deep within the foggy canyon, several more shrieks echo in response, followed by the sound of dozens of wings beating the air. Change of plans. I growl, my eyes narrowing as I prepare for a chaotic brawl. I guess we're doing this the hard way. The second Harpy Scout launches herself off the ledge, diving directly toward my position with her wings folded for maximum speed. Behind her, 3 more harpies emerge from the thick fog, their slender bodies weaving through the stone formations like deadly white darts. Appraisal. Harpy Warrior, level 32. half-humanoid/beast type. Appraisal. Harpy Warrior, level 33, half-humanoid/beast type. Appraisal. Harpy Warrior, level 32, half-humanoid/beast type. Unlike the scouts, these warriors have thicker, gray feathers, and their wing claws are reinforced with sharp, metallic-looking bone growths. 4 of them at once. I calculate, my mind remaining cool and analytical despite the escalating danger. I need to ground them. As the second scout reaches the peak of her dive, I don't wait for her to land. I open my jaws wide, channeling a massive amount of mana into my throat. Skill activated. Corrosive Acid Spit, Tier 2. A high-pressure stream of emerald green acid erupts from my mouth, cutting through the thick fog like a burning laser. The scout tries to dodge, but her high-speed momentum makes it impossible to change direction in time. The acid hits her left wing dead center, instantly dissolving the feathers and melting the flesh beneath. She lets out a horrific, high-pitched scream as her wing collapses, sending her spiraling out of control. She slams into the steep cliffside with a heavy thud, sliding down into the dark depths of the ravine below. You have dealt critical damage to Harpy Scout, level 29. The 3 Harpy warriors let out a furious, synchronized screech, their bodies glowing with a pale green wind aura. Skill activated. Gale Slash. They flap their wings violently, sending dozens of sharp, crescent-shaped blades of compressed air flying toward me. The wind blades cut through the dense fog, leaving clear paths in the mist as they hurtle toward my position. I drop to the ground, crossing my massive arms in front of my face to shield my vulnerable eyes. The wind blades strike my burgundy scales with a series of sharp, metallic clangs. Dragon Demon Scale Armor has absorbed 80% of the physical damage. You have taken 45 physical damage. Is that all you've got? I mock them, my chest swelling as I rise back to my full height. The wind blades have left shallow white scratches on my scales, but my health bar has barely nudged. The 3 warriors are now hovering directly above me, using their wind magic to maintain their position despite the turbulent drafts of the ravine. One of the larger warriors dives, her metallic wing claws extended like twin lances aiming for my throat. Too predictable, I growl, my left leg stepping back to brace for the impact. As she reaches me, I don't try to dodge. Instead, I reach out with my left hand and grab her metallic claw directly, the sharp bone cutting into my palm but failing to sever my thick fingers. You have taken 20 physical damage. I've got you, I whisper, my right hand balling into a massive fist. Before she can retract her claw, I punch her directly in the chest, the sheer force of my strike shattering her ribcage and collapsing her lungs. You have dealt massive critical damage to Harpy Warrior, level 33. She coughs up a thick spray of blue blood, her black eyes losing their luster instantly. I don't let go of her claw. Instead, I use her heavy, limp body as a makeshift flail. I spin on my heels, swinging the dead warrior through the air and slamming her into the second warrior who was diving to support her. The impact is devastating, sending both harpies crashing into the stone ground in a tangled heap of broken bones and feathers. You have slain Harpy Warrior, level 33. Gained 2,800 XP. You have dealt massive physical damage to Harpy Warrior, level 32. The third Harpy Warrior, seeing her 2 companions crushed so easily, hesitates in midair, her wings flapping frantically as she backs away. Oh no, you don't, I growl, my back swelling as I prepare my next skill. Skill activated. Venomous Bone Spikes. With a violent, wet sound, dozens of calcified obsidian needles shoot out from my shoulders and back, launching themselves toward the hovering harpy like a barrage of black arrows. The harpy tries to use her wind magic to create a defensive shield, but the heavy, necrotic-tipped spikes pierce right through the wind current. Several spikes bury themselves deep into her wings and torso, the black poison instantly spreading through her pale skin. She screams in agony as the necrotic poison paralyzes her muscles, causing her to fall from the sky like a stone. She slams onto the rocky outcrop just a few meters away from me, her body twitching violently as the poison does its work. You have dealt critical damage to Harpy Warrior, level 32. Target is suffering from severe necrotic poisoning. I walk over to the two fallen harpies, my heavy footsteps echoing on the wet stone. The second warrior, who was crushed by her companion's body, is still alive, but her legs are completely broken, rendering her unable to fly. She looks up at me with her black eyes, her face twisted in a mixture of terror and pure, primal hatred. "Don't look at me like that," I say, my voice cold and indifferent. "You're just fuel for my future." I raise my heavy foot and stomp down on her head, crushing it instantly and ending her struggle. You have slain Harpy Warrior, level 32. Gained 2,700 XP. I turn to the third warrior, who is now completely paralyzed by the necrotic poison, her breathing shallow and ragged. I pierce her chest with my sharp talon, quickly extracting her glowing blue mana core before the poison can contaminate the magical energy. She goes still as the core is removed, her life force fading into the cold mountain air. You have slain Harpy Warrior, level 32. Gained 2,700 XP. Your level has increased. Level 16 - level 17. I hold the two glowing blue cores in my hands, their cool, wind-attuned energy vibrating against my palms. Without hesitation, I toss both cores into my mouth and swallow them together. Skill activated. Gourmand's Digestion, Tier 1. The double dose of humanoid magic beast essence hits my system like a freezing wave of Arctic air, making my chest tighten as my internal organs adapt. System alert. Humanoid magic beast essence consumed. Progress. 3 out of 5 humanoid essences acquired. System alert. Humanoid magic beast essence consumed. Progress. 4 out of 5 humanoid essences acquired. You have gained permanent physical stats. +6 agility, +12 mana, +4 intelligence. I let out a sharp gasp, a thin stream of frosty mist escaping my lips as the evolutionary energy settles. Just one more. I whisper, my heart pounding with anticipation. Just one more essence and I'll have the 5 I need for humanoid mimicry. I look down at my hands, noticing that the rough, scaly skin on my palms has become slightly smoother, the claws a bit more refined. The system notifications continue to flash in my vision, reminding me of the ultimate goal. Evolution target. Humanoid mimicry. Requires level 40, 5 out of 5 humanoid magic beast essences, 5,000 evolution points. I still need to reach level 40, which means a lot more grinding, but securing the 5 essences early will make the rest of the journey much smoother. I look back down into the dark, foggy depths of the Whispering Ravine. The sound of dozens of wings is getting louder, indicating that the rest of the Harpy colony has finally mobilized. They're coming for revenge, I think, a dark, bloodthirsty smile spreading across my face. Perfect. I don't even have to go looking for my final essence. I stand tall on the edge of the rocky outcrop, my dark, leathery wings spreading wide as I prepare to welcome the incoming storm. Deep in the heart of Oakhaven Forest, the humid, pine-scented air was thick with the scent of damp moss, pine needles, and the iron tang of fresh monster blood. I hunkered down on a colossal, moss-slicked oak branch, my burgundy-scaled body blending seamlessly into the dense, shadowed canopy. My new demonic wings, dark and ribbed like leather sails, were folded tightly against my spine to minimize my silhouette. Below me, the forest floor was a chaotic tapestry of shattered ferns, broken branches, and the steaming remains of my recent feast. The interface of the atlas of mountains and seas flickered before my eyes, displaying a steady stream of green system notifications. System notification. Evolution points processed successfully. Current evolution points, 1,450/5,000. Current level, 15/28. Fledgling phase, demonic Tautai lineage. I let out a silent, internal sigh of frustration, my tongue flickering out to taste the air for any lingering traces of mana. Only 1,450 evolution points. I was still a long, grueling way off from the 5,000 required to unlock humanoid mimicry. If I wanted to stroll into human cities, buy up their finest spices, and exploit Gourmand's digestion without getting blasted by ballistas, I needed to grind harder. I patted the small leather pouch tied to my waist, feeling the frantic, vibrating thrum of the level 8 copper-furred rodent trapped inside. Patience, little metal detector, I thought, tapping the pouch gently. Your turn to sniff out some high-grade or will come soon enough. Suddenly, the copper-furred rodent froze, its vibrations stopping instantly as it curled into a tight, terrified ball of fur. At the same instant, my enhanced auditory receptors, upgraded during my evolution into a Tautai hybrid, picked up a rhythmic metallic clinking. It was a heavy, deliberate sound, echoing through the quiet woods from several hundred meters away. Asterisk clank. 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 Asterisk. It wasn't the erratic thumping of a wild beast. It was the synchronized, heavy stride of disciplined soldiers clad in full-plate armor. My three-eyed vision sharpened as I activated gluttonous void eye beneath my armpits, expanding my field of view to a complete 360-degree sphere. The forest became a grid of thermal signatures, magical ley lines, and structural weak points. Through the dense foliage, about 300 yards to the north, I spotted them. Sir Gregory and a small, elite unit of the Soline Iron Vanguard. There were 6 of them in total, moving in a tight, defensive wedge formation that left absolutely no room for a sudden ambush. Sir Gregory led the pack, his massive sun-motif shield strapped to his left forearm and his heavy claymore resting against his shoulder. His armor was spotless despite the rough terrain, the silver plating gleaming with a faint, defensive enchantment that hummed with light mana. They tracked me, I muttered internally, my slit-pupil eyes narrowing as I calculated their movement speed. Or rather, they tracked the scent of the acid and the wagon. To my left, just 50 yards away, sat the abandoned carcass of the culinary wagon I had raided earlier, its wooden frame partially melted by my corrosive acid spit. Beside the wagon lay the dissolved, skeletal remains of the marsh raptors that Ysteriel had foolishly sent after me. Without making a single sound, I activated Shadow Glide, my physical form melting into the pitch-black shadows cast by the towering canopy. I became nothing more than a dark, shifting stain on the massive oak branch, completely undetectable by conventional magical or physical tracking. Below, the Vanguard unit breached the clearing, their weapons drawn and shields raised in perfect mechanical unison. Sir Gregory raised a gauntlet hand, signaling his men to halt as he surveyed the gruesome scene of the slaughter. "Spread out," Gregory commanded, his deep baritone voice carrying a harsh, metallic rattle through his visor. "Check the perimeter, but do not lose line of sight." 2 Vanguard soldiers, carrying heavy halberds and wearing the crest of the Soline Kingdom, moved toward the melted raptor carcasses. One of them nudged a half-dissolved skull with the tip of his boot, his face twisting in disgust beneath his open helm. "Captain," the soldier called out, his voice trembling slightly, "this isn't normal dragon fire. The bones are completely hollowed out by some kind of hyper-concentrated acid." Sir Gregory walked over to the melted raptor, his heavy boots sinking slightly into the soft, mud-slicked forest floor. He knelt down, ignoring the rising, acidic steam that hissed against his enchanted greaves, and inspected the bite marks on the ribcage. "Look at the serration of these wounds," Gregory muttered, his gloved fingers tracing the edge of a shattered bone. This wasn't a mindless feeding frenzy. The meat was stripped cleanly, and the marrow was extracted with surgical precision, he continued, his voice growing colder by the second. I grinned from my perch, my rows of razor-sharp teeth gleaming in the darkness of the canopy. Of course it was clean, you tin-can-wearing ape, I thought. I have a system to satisfy. I don't waste precious stats by leaving meat on the bone. "Sir," another soldier called out from the ruined wagon, "the vault chest is gone, and the rare spices we recovered from the southern merchants have been entirely consumed. Even the ceramic jars were crushed and licked clean," the soldier added, holding up a sparkling, salt-encrusted shard of pottery. Gregory stood up slowly, his towering frame casting a long shadow across the clearing as he turned his gaze upward toward the trees. My breath hitched slightly, but I remained perfectly still, my shadow glide absorbing any heat or magical energy my body emitted. Gregory's eyes scanned the very branch I was perched on, but his gaze passed over me without a single spark of recognition. "This is no ordinary beast," Gregory said, his fist clenching tightly around the hilt of his claymore. "It understands the value of our currency, it possesses highly advanced spatial magic, and it has an selective appetite. It targeted the high-density mana crystals and the spiced culinary goods while ignoring the raw iron ore," he reasoned aloud. "Damn, this guy is actually smart," I thought, adjusting my internal assessment of the night. He's not just a generic, muscle-brained tutorial boss. I focused my gluttonous void eye on Gregory, pulling up his detailed stat sheet to evaluate the feasibility of an assassination. Appraisal target: Sir Gregory of the Soline Iron Vanguard. Level: 45. Class: Solar Templar/Heavy Guardian. HP: 4200/4200 MP. 850/850. Physical defense: 480. Extreme high plate armor and solar blessing. Magical defense: 320. High. Active passive: Aegis of the Sun God. Reduces all incoming physical and elemental damage by 35% when health is above 50%. I stared at the numbers, a dry, sarcastic chuckle echoing in my mind. Nearly 500 physical defense and a passive damage reduction. If I jump down there right now, my talons will probably spark off his chest plate like cheap sparklers on New Year's Eve. Even with my corrosive acid spit, it would take multiple direct hits to melt through that enchanted plate armor, and his unit of level 40+ mages would turn me into a pincushion before I could finish the job. Fighting him directly was a classic low-tier gamer mistake: high risk, low reward, and a guaranteed ticket back to the respawn screen. But a tactical retreat doesn't mean I can't have a little fun, I whispered to myself, my gaze shifting toward the south. Just a few miles back through the pass, my dear sister Ysteriel was currently recovering from her injuries, her mana depleted and her pride utterly shattered. She was a purebred crimson dragoness, a walking disaster of ego and fire magic, and the perfect scapegoat for my current predicament. Sir Gregory was furious about the stolen treasury chest, and Ysteriel was a massive, highly visible target who loved nothing more than roaring her head off when challenged. If I could point this angry, highly geared human raid party directly at her, I could solve two of my biggest problems at once. First, Gregory and his men would keep Ysteriel too busy to track me down with her annoying blood spells. Second, while they were busy trying to slaughter each other, I could use the distraction to slip deeper into the human kingdom's territory undetected. It was a beautiful, elegant, and entirely diabolical plan, a true masterpiece of tactical diversion. I slowly slid down the backside of the massive tree trunk, using my retractable, feline-style talons to grip the bark without making a single sound. Once my hind claws touched the soft mud, I deactivated Shadow Glide for just a fraction of a second, letting my massive weight sink deep into the earth. I carefully pressed my left hind foot into a patch of soft, wet clay right at the edge of the clearing, leaving a massive, highly detailed reptilian footprint. To make it even more obvious, I channeled a tiny burst of fire mana through my talons, scorching the edges of the print until the mud hissed and turned to charcoal. The footprint was pointing directly toward the south, aligned perfectly with the mountain pass where Ysteriel was likely nursing her wounds. Next to the footprint, I dropped a single, empty spice jar that I had stolen from the wagon, its surface coated in a light layer of my acidic saliva. With my trap set, I stepped back into the shadows, activating Shadow Glide once more and disappearing into the dense foliage, just as Gregory turned his head toward the sound of the crackling embers. "What was that?" Gregory barked, his claymore immediately swinging into a defensive guard as he rushed toward the edge of the clearing. The two Vanguard soldiers flanked him, their shields raised as they peered into the dark woods. Gregory's eyes locked onto the freshly scorched footprint, his expression hardening as he knelt down to inspect the charred clay. He picked up the empty, acid-coated spice jar, his eyes widening slightly as he felt the residual warmth of the fire magic. "The beast was just here," Gregory whispered, his voice trembling with a mixture of rage and anticipation. "It's mocking us. It left this trail on purpose. It's heading south, back toward the mountain pass," one of the soldiers noted, pointing at the direction of the footprint. "Perhaps it's retreating to its lair?" "No," Gregory growled, standing up and slamming his claymore back into its scabbard. "It's not retreating. It's leading us somewhere. But we have no choice. That beast has the guild's gold, and the king's taxes must be paid," Gregory declared, his face hardening. "Vanguard, form up," Gregory ordered, raising his sword high. "We march south. We hunt this dragon down, no matter what dark hole it crawls into." "Yes, Captain," the soldiers roared in unison, their heavy armor clanking as they turned and marched rapidly in the direction of the footprint. I watched them go from the safety of the high canopy, a wide, predatory grin spreading across my scaly face. Perfect, I thought, stretching my massive wings as I prepared to launch myself in the opposite direction, toward the wealthy, unprotected human settlements of the Northern Valley. "Have fun playing with my sister, Sir Gregory. She has a much worse temper than I do." With a powerful, silent leap, I launched myself into the sky, my dark form disappearing into the vast, twilight expanse of Oakhaven Forest. The wind rushed over my burgundy scales, cold and crisp, carrying the sharp scent of oncoming rain from the northern peaks. I glided through the upper canopy, keeping my wings angled to catch the thermal updrafts while maintaining a low, erratic flight path to avoid silhouette detection. Behind me, the metallic clatter of the Soline iron Vanguard grew fainter, swallowed by the dense rustle of the ancient pines. Below, the forest floor was a blur of dark green and shadow, a vast, untamed wilderness that had served as my hunting ground for weeks. But the wild was getting crowded, and my appetite was growing far too large for mere forest beasts and wandering goblins. System notification. Distance from threat, Sir Gregory, has exceeded 1,000 meters. In-battle status lifted. Experience and status recovery rates returned to normal. I let out a low, rumbling hiss of satisfaction, my tail twitching in amusement as I visualized the oncoming clash. Icerial was probably still trying to patch up her shredded wings with whatever low-tier healing herbs she could scavenge, completely unaware of the ironclad freight train heading her way. She was incredibly stubborn, which meant she wouldn't run from a fight with humans. She would see them as insolent insects to be purged with fire. And Gregory, fueled by holy righteousness and the desire to recover his precious tax gold, wouldn't hesitate to unleash his high-level Templar skills the moment he saw a crimson scale. "Two birds, one stone," I muttered, my voice a dry, gravelly rasp that barely carried past my own snout. While they're busy tearing each other apart, I can finally focus on finding some high-density mana sources to jumpstart my next evolution. I checked my internal compass, mapping out the geography of the Northern Valley based on the fragmented memories of the merchants I had previously liquidated. Just beyond the northern border of Oakhaven Forest lay the outer rim of the Soline Kingdom's agricultural territory. It was a region rich with fertile land, small trading outposts, and, most importantly, several low-security storage depots used by the local merchant guilds. If my sources were correct, one of those depots was currently holding a shipment of refined mana crystals destined for the capital's magical academies. Refined crystals were pure, concentrated evolution points wrapped in neat, easily digestible packages. No more chewing on dirty goblin ears or choking down stringy raptor meat, I thought, saliva pooling in my maw at the sheer prospect of a clean, magical buffet. Just pure, unadulterated magical energy, ready to be processed by Gourmand's digestion. I tilted my wings, dipping low into a narrow ravine that carved its way through the northern edge of the forest. The ravine was choked with thick brambles and ancient briars, providing excellent cover from any aerial scouts or high-altitude sentries the kingdom might have posted. As I landed on the muddy bottom of the ravine, my heavy claws sinking into the wet clay, I felt the leather pouch at my waist twitch violently again. The copper-furred rodent inside was scratching frantically at the leather, its tiny claws making a muffled, scraping sound. "Ah, right," I said, untying the pouch and holding it up to my central eye. "My little metal detector is getting restless." I loosened the drawstring just enough for the creature to poke its wet, copper-colored nose out into the cool air. The rodent's whiskers vibrated at an incredible speed, its tiny nostrils flaring as it took in the complex scents of the ravine. This wasn't a normal animal. It was a mana-scented gopher, a rare beast capable of detecting the unique magical signatures of buried ores and hidden veins of crystal. To the average hunter, it was a valuable pet worth a dozen gold coins. To me, it was a living, breathing dowsing rod for evolution points. "All right, little guy, show me what you've got," I whispered, keeping my hand cupped around its tiny body so it wouldn't try to bolt into the undergrowth. "Find me something rich, and I might actually let you live long enough to see the next valley." The gopher let out a high-pitched, trembling squeak, its head turning sharply toward the eastern wall of the ravine. Its body began to vibrate with a specific, rhythmic frequency, the copper fur along its spine standing on end like tiny metal needles. I looked toward the eastern wall, my gluttonous void eye instantly scanning the rock face for any anomalies. The stone was mostly standard gray granite, covered in layers of wet moss and trickling water. But beneath the surface, about 10 feet into the rock, my visual interface picked up a faint, pulsing blue glow. Analyzing structural composition, detected low-grade blue iron or vein. Estimated purity, 34%. Potential evolution points, 150 EP if fully consumed. I snorted, a puff of gray smoke escaping my nostrils. 150 points? That's barely a snack. Still, a pragmatic gamer never leaves free resources on the table, especially when preparing for a major level gap. I set the gopher back into its pouch, tightening the drawstring securely before pinning it back to my waist. I stepped toward the rock wall, my burgundy-scaled forelimbs flexing as I activated Void Claw. A dark, distorting aura of spatial energy wrapped around my sharp talons, making the air around my fingers shimmer and warp. With a swift, downward swipe, I plunged my claws directly into the solid granite. The stone didn't shatter or crack. Instead, it parted like warm butter under the influence of the void energy, the physical matter simply dissolving into nothingness where my claws made contact. I carved a deep, clean scoop out of the rock face, pulling out a chunk of stone speckled with glowing metallic blue veins. Without hesitating, I tossed the heavy rock into my mouth, my powerful jaws crushing the granite with a loud, sickening crack. Normal creatures would break their teeth and shred their throats attempting to eat solid stone, but my Tautai physiology was built for absolute consumption. My throat expanded slightly to accommodate the rough edges, and the moment the stone hit my stomach, Gourmand's digestion went to work. A sensation of intense heat flared in my gut, a pleasant, bubbling warmth that rapidly broke down the mineral structures into raw energy. System notification. Consumed low-grade blue iron or X1. Processing mineral density. Evolution points gained, plus 15. Tastes like dusty copper and wet dirt, I muttered, coughing up a small puff of gray stone powder. But the stats are real. I spent the next 5 minutes systematically carving into the vein, scooping out chunks of the glowing blue iron and shoving them down my throat like a starving man at a buffet. Asterisk crunch. Crunch. Gulp. Asterisk it was a repetitive, monotonous task, but each system chime was music to my ears. System notification. Evolution points gained. Plus 22. System notification. Evolution points gained. Plus 18. System notification. Evolution points gained. Plus 25. By the time I had hollowed out the entire vein, leaving a neat, circular tunnel in the ravine wall, the blue glow had completely faded from the stone. I wiped a smear of blue, metallic dust from my lower jaw, checking my updated progress bar. Current evolution points, 1,605/5,000. Better, I noted, my internal monologue calculating the rate of return. But still too slow. If I want to reach the 5,000 threshold before the human kingdom mobilizes its high-level squads, I need a major score. I climbed back out of the ravine, my dark wings keeping me balanced as I ascended the steep, muddy slope. The sky had turned a deep, bruised purple, the first heavy drops of rain beginning to patter against my thick scales. The rain was a welcome blessing. It would wash away my physical tracks and dampen my scent, making it even harder for any wandering rangers to follow me. I continued northward, utilizing the thickest parts of the tree line as a shield against any prying eyes from the main road. After another hour of stealthy travel, the dense canopy of Oakhaven Forest finally began to thin, revealing the rolling green hills of the northern valley. In the distance, dotting the landscape like tiny wooden toys, were the farmhouses and windmills of the frontier settlements. Farther north, nestled against the base of a low ridge, sat a cluster of stone buildings surrounded by a sturdy wooden palisade. 2 iron lanterns hung over the main gate, their flickering orange light reflecting off the wet mud of the road. A wooden signpost near the path read, Greenfield Trade Depot Solene Merchant Guild. My gluttonous void, I immediately went to work, scanning the perimeter of the depot from a distance of 400 yards. The defenses were laughably basic compared to the military encampments I had seen in my previous life. There were only 4 guards visible on the wooden palisade, all of them wearing basic leather brigandine and carrying standard-issue crossbows. Appraisal target: Greenfield Militia Guard, level 18. Class: Archer/Watchman, HP 450/450. Physical defense: 65, level 18. I scoffed, a predatory grin forming on my face. They're practically civilians. If I wanted to, I could tear this entire compound apart in 5 minutes. But brute force wasn't the goal here. A loud, bloody slaughter would draw the immediate attention of the regional garrison, and I didn't want another Sir Gregory chasing me before I was ready. I needed to sneak in, consume the high-value mana targets, and vanish like a ghost in the night. I looked down at the copper-furred rodent in my hand, which was currently sniffing the air toward the depot with intense excitement. Its little body was vibrating so hard it felt like a running engine. "You smell it too, don't you?" I whispered, my voice dripping with anticipation. The sweet, refined scent of high-grade mana crystals. I tucked the rodent back into its pouch and crouched low in the tall grass at the edge of the forest. I activated Shadow Glide once more, my burgundy body turning into a liquid, ink-black shadow that flowed seamlessly across the wet grass toward the wooden palisade. The rain poured down in sheets now, the heavy drops drumming against the wooden roof of the depot's main warehouse, providing the perfect acoustic cover. One of the guards on the wall coughed, pulling his woolen cloak tighter around his shoulders to block out the damp chill. He looked directly toward the patch of grass where I was gliding, but his eyes saw nothing but the shifting shadows of the storm. I reached the base of the wooden wall, my dark, shadowy form scaling the rough logs without leaving a single claw mark. I slipped over the top of the palisade, dropping silently into the mud on the inside of the compound. The courtyard was empty, save for a few empty wooden crates and a parked merchant wagon covered in a thick canvas tarp. The main warehouse sat in the center of the compound, its double wooden doors locked with a heavy iron padlock that gleamed with a faint, defensive ward. Detected. Level 2 security ward. Alarm type. Dot. Triggering the lock physically will alert the guard barracks instantly. I tilted my head, looking at the stone foundation of the building. Who said anything about using the front door? I thought, my grin widening. I moved around to the side of the warehouse, finding a small, dark corner that was completely hidden from the guards on the wall. I pressed my right hand against the stone foundation, activating Void Claw at its lowest, most precise setting. The spatial energy dissolved a neat, circular hole through the stone wall, large enough for me to slip my hand inside. I reached through the opening, feeling the dry, sawdust-scented air of the interior. With a gentle pull, I used my physical strength to widen the hole, carefully catching the dissolving stone pieces so they wouldn't make a sound as they fell. Within seconds, I had created a narrow, dark tunnel leading directly into the main storage hall of the depot. I compressed my flexible, reptilian skeleton, sliding through the gap like an oversized lizard entering a burrow. Once inside, the scent of dried herbs, cured meats, and refined iron hit my nostrils, but beneath it all was the sharp, ozone-like smell of pure magic. The warehouse was packed with rows of wooden shelves, all of them loaded with crates, barrels, and sacks of various goods. I followed the scent of magic toward the very back of the hall, where a small iron-bound chest sat on a raised stone pedestal. The chest was locked, but unlike the main doors, it had no active alarms, only a physical lock designed to keep out ordinary thieves. I raised my hand, my void claw slicing through the heavy iron lock like a hot wire through wax. The lock fell to the floor with a soft, metallic thud, and I slowly lifted the heavy wooden lid. Inside, resting on a bed of black velvet, were 12 large, cut crystals, each one glowing with a brilliant, pulsing blue light. They were refined mana crystals, each one packed with pure, compressed ambient mana harvested from the deep ley lines of the kingdom. Appraisal: refined mana crystal, medium grade, X12. Estimated EP per crystal, 250. My mouth watered, a thick drop of acidic saliva falling onto the velvet, which instantly hissed and dissolved into a smoking ruin. Jackpot? I whispered, my central eye glowing with unbridled greed. Without a second thought, I grabbed 3 of the crystals and shoved them into my mouth, my teeth grinding them into glowing, sugary dust. The sensation was explosive. It wasn't the heavy, physical warmth of the iron ore, but a sharp, electric jolt of energy that coursed through my veins like liquid lightning. System notification: consumed, refined mana crystal, medium grade, X3. Processing pure mana core, evolution points gained, plus 750. Oh, that is the good stuff, I gasped, my entire body shivering as the raw magic integrated into my system. I didn't waste any time. I grabbed the remaining 9 crystals and tossed them down my throat in 2 massive gulps. Asterisk crunch. Gulp. Crunch. Gulp. Asterisk. The rush of energy was so intense I had to lean against the stone pedestal to keep my balance, my vision swimming with bright, shimmering patterns of blue and violet. System notification: consumed, refined mana crystal, medium grade, X9. Processing pure mana core, evolution points gained, plus 2,250. Current evolution points, 4,605/5,000. I stared at the flashing green interface, my heart hammering against my ribs like a wild beast. For 1,605? I whispered, a dark, manic laugh bubbling up in my chest. I'm only 400 points away from the evolution threshold. Just 400 more points, and I can shed this monstrous, scaly skin and walk among the humans as one of their own. I looked around the warehouse, my senses hyper-alert as I searched for anything else that might contain high-density mana. There were no more chests on the shelves, but my gluttonous void I picked up a faint, secondary magical trail leading toward the cellar stairs in the corner of the room. The trail was different from the clean, refined scent of the crystals. It was a heavy, ancient smell, thick with the scent of dried blood and old iron. What else are you hiding in here, little merchants? I muttered, my claws clicking against the wooden floorboards as I crept toward the dark stairway. I slipped down the stairs, my shadow glide keeping my movements entirely silent as I descended into the damp, cool air of the cellar. The cellar was much smaller than the upper floor, filled with dusty wine barrels and crates of moldy potatoes. But in the center of the room, half hidden beneath a dusty canvas sheet, sat a large, stone sarcophagus. The surface of the stone was carved with intricate, ancient runes that hummed with a faint, necrotic red light. Analyzing magical signature. Detected. Sealed relic of the ancient demon war. Estimated age, 300 years. Potential evolution points, high. A demon war relic? I murmured, my curiosity thoroughly piqued. In a backwater merchant outpost? This shouldn't be here. I walked over to the sarcophagus, my hand reaching out to touch the cold stone. The moment my fingers brushed the runes, a sharp, stabbing pain shot up my arm, accompanied by a low, echoing whisper in my mind. Consume, devour, return to the abyss. I smirked, my 3 eyes narrowing as I channeled a burst of my own demonic mana into the seal. You're preaching to the choir, buddy, I thought. I'm the one who does the devouring around here. I activated Void Claw and slammed my hand into the center of the seal, the dark, spatial energy instantly clashing with the necrotic red mana. The runes flared brightly, casting long, distorted shadows across the cellar walls, before shattering into a shower of harmless, fading red sparks. With a low groan of protest, the heavy stone lid of the sarcophagus slid aside, revealing the contents within. Lying on a bed of decaying silk was a massive, black iron broadsword, its blade jagged and pitted like the teeth of a wild beast. The hilt of the sword was fashioned in the shape of a screaming skull, its empty eye sockets glowing with a dim, dark red flame. Appraisal. The Blood Drinker's Edge, damaged demonic relic. Item level 50, unusable due to structural decay. Evolution value 800 EP, due to dense concentrations of ancient demonic blood. I grinned, my rows of razor-sharp teeth glinting in the dark. An unusable weapon filled with high-grade demonic energy? To a human, it's a useless piece of historical junk. To me, it's the final key to my freedom. I grabbed the heavy iron hilt, ignoring the burning sensation as the weapon's residual curse tried and failed to possess my mind. With a single, powerful bite, I clamped my jaws onto the center of the blade. The metal was incredibly dense, far harder than the blue iron but my Tautai lineage was designed to consume the unconsumable. I bit down with all my might, my jaw muscles bulging as I exerted thousands of pounds of pressure. Snap! The massive blade shattered into 3 pieces, the ancient demonic blood trapped inside instantly vaporizing into a thick, red mist that filled my lungs. I swallowed the metal shards, the heat in my stomach rising to an almost painful intensity as Gourmand's digestion began to break down the ancient relic. System notification. Consumed, the Blood Drinker's Edge X1. Processing ancient demonic bloodlines. Evolution points gained. Plus 800. System notification. Evolution point threshold reached. Current evolution points, 5,405/5,000. Requirements for humanoid mimicry have been fully satisfied. I fell to my knees, a gasp escaping my lips as a wave of intense, white-hot energy erupted from my core, spreading through every nerve and muscle in my body. The system interface before my eyes began to flicker and glitch, the green notifications turning into a solid, blinding white light. Evolution sequence initiated. Reconstructing biological blueprint. Warning. Please find a secure location immediately. The evolution process will result in temporary physical vulnerability. I smiled, my vision beginning to fade as the cocoon of white light wrapped around my burgundy body. Finally, I thought as the darkness took me. Let's see how the humans like me when I'm one of them. The damp, earthy scent of ancient pine needles and moss fills my nostrils as I weave through the towering canopy of Oakhaven Forest. Behind me, the distant, frantic horns of Sir Gregory's iron Vanguard echo through the valley, their torches casting a flickering orange glow against the night sky. They are executing a sweeping search pattern, grid by grid, trying to recover the 5,000 gold coins currently jingling in my dimensional storage. I glide through the shadows, my newly sprouted demonic wings folded tightly against my 3-meter-tall burgundy frame to avoid snagging on the thick branches. Every rustle of leaves makes me freeze, my crimson scales blending into the dark undergrowth as I utilize Shadow Glide to erase my physical presence. The sheer weight of the stolen guild treasury chest sloshes in my inventory, a delicious reminder of my successful heist at Blackfong Pass. But wealth means nothing if a high-level paladin like Gregory drives a runic spear through my throat before I can spend a single copper. Suddenly, A frantic, high-pitched scratching vibration erupts from the leather pouch strapped securely to my thick leather harness. I reach down with my massive, clawed hand and gently pinch the scruff of the level 8 copper-furred rodent I've affectionately dubbed Squeaks. The little beast is trembling violently, its whiskers twitching like hyperactive guitar strings as its snout points rigidly toward the earth.